got a feeling your whole family's going down.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's not like I don't. On one point, I would say like I don't understand it, but also I'm so confused that I keep watching the videos, so I kind of understand how people watch them. It's so bizarre though. What is happening, everybody, and welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. This is going to be my last show for a little bit here. I'm going away on vacation next week, so my last time hanging out with Eric for a little bit, and then it is going to be me taking some time off, getting ready for the football season because I'll be gone next week. But when I come back, we're going to be ramping up for football. We're going to have our packages coming out, which, by the way, there is no innuendo there. It's our football packages, Eric. Relax.
No.
So we're going to have football packages announced.
Whew.
We're going to have new tools. I'm going to be having content doing about all that kinds of stuff. So I'm very excited about that. But first, a little bit of time away. So I'm going to treasure this show. We talk about Paul Skeens, a little bit of MLB DFS. And as for you guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you could be so kind. Shout out to Chris Williams. He already gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. If you guys are in our Discord channel, if you got questions for myself or Eric, hit me up so I could see those over the course of the show. Now let's get into the slate here, Eric. 8-gamer. I actually do like this slate quite a bit. There's lots of different options. We got a Coors Field offensive game to talk about. We've got Paul Skeens on the slate. Anything is like overarching things you want to talk about before we get into the individual players?
We don't have Paul Skeens on the main DraftKings slate, do we?
Not on the main DraftKings. I should have clarified. Pitching today, not on the DraftKings slate, because I do have a question that I wanted to ask you about him that we kind of already discussed a little bit ahead of time.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't have a whole hell of a lot else to add.
Paul Skeens. Do you think he ends up getting shut down? Because there's also, some betting relevancy to this. There's been rumors online, which I think also, I owe you an apology because the other day you were like, Jackson Merrill, he could end up being rookie of the year. And I kind of scoffed you. It's like, how could it not be Paul Skeens? But I mean, Jackson Merrill's clearly been ridiculously good, as is Paul Skeens. But now you got the rumors that Skeens could be getting shut down the stretch here. He is pitching today, though, against the Seattle Mariners. And the Pirates are still not completely out of the playoff race. They're still involved. But what do you think ends up happening with Paul Skeens? Will he get shut down here down the stretch?
I don't know, but there's a lot of betting things that we can do to try to account for it before we dive into the main slate over on DK. Ooh, Max Muncy will be activated next Tuesday. That'll be fun to see as well because the Dodgers are already ridiculous. But Max Muncy, that'll make him more ridiculous or something. But yeah, I ended up getting plus 360 on Jackson Merrill when I was in New York on that Friday. So a week ago today. Got tipped off from Toast, actually, from Kyle Kerm's show where we were talking about it. And he was the first person who put it into my ear. And generally, you're the futures guy. So we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this week. And, well, the odds drastically shifted towards Jackson Merrill in a pretty prominent way after the weekend. Part of that is that a position player versus, a pitcher. Also, you're not seeing Paul Skeens completely mow down teams the way that he had early on in his tenure. But do I think he'll be shut down? No, but I think at least when you start talking about 8.5 strikeout props, and then you talk about scattered showers around the area, and then you talk about I ended up getting plus 100 on under 1.5 total, 1.5 earned runs for him. It's sitting at minus 120 right now. So 20 cents of closing on value, a massive number there. I think there's just small things you can do to try to adjust and hope that somehow, some way he only goes and throws 90 pitches or 85 pitches or can somehow get his workload trimmed before potentially being shut down. So I think the Jackson Merrill hype is real. He's been phenomenal for the last month. Do I think I would rather have Paul Skeens on my baseball team? Yes, I do. But these are just kind of those back and forths where it's voters and humans and you're trying to take advantage of it. But there was no doubt in my mind that if I had gotten, it was 20-1, I think is what Toast ended up getting on that. That's a ridiculous type number for the probability of a guy like this being shut down. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'm curious what you think.
I don't think he's going to get shut down. Actually, here's what I'm waiting for. I'm hoping the line keeps moving, and then there's Paul Skeens at plus money to win Rookie of the Year. That's really what I'm waiting on. Because every day I look at it, gets closer and closer and closer. I think even when you had first brought it up, which wasn't all that long ago, it might have been Monday or Tuesday or something like that. Paul Skeens was minus 500 at that point in time. I just looked at it now. He's minus 160 on FanDuel. So every day, just a little bit closer and closer to even money. I would love. Now, I guess if he goes out and pitches really well today, it kind of goes out the window because he probably goes back.
What if he goes out and pitches really poorly? No, yeah, it's going to go out the. Well, I mean, if he pitches poorly, the hype is just going to continue to truck. And I think pitchers probably get crucified a little bit more than position players because you only see them once every 5-6 days. So there's the bias that's already intended there where it's like, oh, well, Paul Skeens was terrible in his last start. And Jackson Merrill can go 0 for 4 3 days in a row. But if he has a double dong game, that's just a ridiculous opportunity for him to continue to accumulate highlights, accumulate plays. He's been playing center field now for San Diego and doing a phenomenal job at it. He's never played center field in his entire baseball career. So Jackson Merrill is an incredible story as a baseball fan and somebody who tracks it aside from just betting purposes. I really enjoyed watching him and seeing that transfer from the infield into being a center frickin' fielder. Mookie Betts makes it look easier than it is, but there's no doubt that Paul Skeens is still who I'd want and still who I'd vote for, but the probability is moving away from him for sure.
The main reason I don't think he's going to get shut down is teams are so incentivized now to play their young players and to have them win awards in a way that most people, like I told you before, like this is not something that really gets talked about. Teams get draft picks now if your players win rookie of the year.
That.
And it's in a way that really helps your team. So for example, a couple years ago, Mariners have Julio Rodriguez. They call him up. He wins rookie of the year. They got the 29th overall pick in the draft as compensation for Julio Rodriguez winning rookie of the year. Getting a first round pick for a player on your team winning rookie of the year, that is actually very meaningful to the future of your team. And I think that's enough incentive for the Pirates to say, let's get Paul Skeens, whatever be 3 or 4 more starts this year. Because if he's getting shut down, it's not like he could be getting shut down today or tomorrow. It would be once they're eliminated from the playoff race. They're at least going to wait until they're eliminated. And then at that point, you only got 3 or 4 more starts out of Paul Skeens, and that has potential to get you an extra first round pick. I think the trade-off is worth it at that point.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it would be. So I didn't know that until you brought that up. I generally don't go into the awards docket very often. So there, unless you tell me to do something, I know that we had been on, I think last year was like the Baltimore Tampa Bay race. You had some really good positions on that. And you got me onto some of those plays. It didn't end up going in our favor, but there was no doubt that we got really, really close. And it was a great bet no matter what. This feels like the same thing where it was like, I feel like this was a good bet by me no matter what. I obviously wish I had gotten the crazy number that other people got, but still okay with it, still all right with it. And, you know, I am hoping that the line buoys back so that I can take advantage on the other side and just take a profit and move on with my life, because it's going to be very, very close. And human error is such a thing with these voting, and you know more about that than I do, but it's always kind of funny when it gets down to the end of it where the betting lines will move in drastic directions based on ridiculous sources.
And by the way, shout out to, we got some super chats coming in, so we'll start talking about the slate now. We've got Chris Williams gifted out another 5 YouTube memberships. Guitar Z-Man gifted out another 5 YouTube memberships. So guys, thank you very much for supporting us. And then Aiden Queskin, right off the bat, he wants a home run pick from you, Eric. He wants to know, Eric, who is the, if this person hits a home run, Duke gets a new toy play of the day?
Wow, that's an amazing play of the day. Yeah, we got to have like Duke's dog of the day or Duke's dinger of the day. I'm happy to do that too. These are things that, thank you for doing my marketing for me. We will not be paying you, but we appreciate you. Thank you for paying us. That was very nice. You the best. I think it's weird because I this is a second straight day. I don't have any plays, any bets in play in the home run department. I'm going to do a round robin after this show for the premium Discord, so that'll be fun. But why don't we get a little bit weird here? I'm gonna go to Gavin Lux. Gavin Lux is way off the board. I brought up his RBI a lot this week. Plus 190, plus 200 over at Bet365. I think if you have access to that as well. But Gavin Lux is in a prime spot here, batting in the middle of this lineup. Now, Max Muncy gets back next Tuesday. I'm sure you'll see him batting 7th. But the Dodgers right now in their current construction, I mean, it is left, right, left, right, left. And the guys in front of him are just ridiculous, but you're not getting the kind of numbers that you'd really want. Miles Michaelis, like a 200 expected ISO, going up against left-handed bats here on the season. Let me see where he's at, because Gavin Lux is a contrarian option that I really like for today, but I specifically like his 2 RBI play plus 200 if you're looking at getting some coin down. So Gavin Lux, my homer.
Individual hitter that I'm in. I don't know. He only asked for yours, so maybe I should save mine for later. What do you think?
No, give it. No,
right.
so here's the thing. This is not my DFS home run. This is like my betting one because I'm assuming he is asking to like have it be a bet that he can fire up. It's plus 870 at FanDuel. Gavin Lux to homer. I will definitely be betting that.
All right. So I don't have a home run bet for today. I just have my DFS picks here loaded up and ready to go. What do you say? I'll let you decide. Do I give it out now? Or do I wait for the end of the program?
We'll wait for the end of the program. I'll give my DFS one because I've got a different DFS one that's more probabilistic, and also ownership is not there on this person, and I very much want it.
Ooh. Well, I'll tell you this right now. The player that I'm going to pick for a home run today is projected for 2% ownership.
Oh, baby, this is sexy. I think mine was like at 5 last time I looked. I will double check, but yeah, 4.6% ownership. All right, cool.
Got a super chat from Chris Williams as well. He says, great show like always, fellas. Playing my usual night slate, doing multiple lineups. But if doing just one next to Schwellenbach, who'd be your next preferred pitcher? All right, so the late
Spencer Arrighetti by a mile. Oh, for the late slate. Okay.
So the options for the late slate, Schwellenbach, and then you got the Coors Field game. So Matt Waldron, Cal Quantrill, and Jose Soriano.
I'll go Matt Waldron.
But these are tough options. I'll say Matt Waldron as well. But boy, it is very clearly Spencer Schwellenbach against the Angels one, and then everybody else well behind him, because then it's Jose Soriano, who's $8,400 pitching against the Braves, and the two Coors Field pitchers. I'll go Matt Waldron, but it's hard to feel great about any of those, Chris. But thank you for the super chat. Let's talk about the main slate pitchers now, Eric. And where this has to start here is going to be the ownership on Spencer Arrighetti. So let's just group all of the pitchers priced 8K or higher together, because we would be remiss if we did not address right at the top of the pitcher talk that Spencer Arrighetti is pulling 44% ownership. He's pitching against the Chicago White Sox. I bet him under 6.5 strikeouts earlier in the day. Got some good closing line value. I bet it at plus 110. Now it's minus 110. So I feel good about that closing line value aspect of it. I don't feel great about having an under on a decent pitcher strikeout prop going up against the Chicago White Sox. But what do you make of him being 44%? I'm clearly playing him in tournaments. Playing him in cash games, playing him at some extent in tournaments. But what about relative to his ownership?
I'm going to be right around the field, I think, when it's all said and done. I've currently got 40%. It's going to buoy between like 40 and 50 throughout this entire show. I'm probably not going to be shorting him. I know that the strikeout prop looks good. It was the #1 play over on OddsShopper when I looked this morning on the positive EV tool. It was a little bit aggressive up there for the Angels. But one thing that did change for the Angels is they ended up DFAing Willie Calhoun, which is a lefty. And if you don't have lefties in this lineup, they have this Nico Cavadas guy, but that's going to be more of a strikeout dude than what Willie Calhoun was. And so we are seeing pretty decent strikeout matchup here for Spencer Schwellenbach. I have no problem with his ownership at its per. Oh, Arrighetti. I thought we were talking about Schwellenbach. My bad.
No, Arrighetti's 44% owned.
Oh, I was looking at Schwellenbach being, for whatever reason, I thought we were starting on the expensive end, and I said I'm going to have like 18%, 20% of him. But yeah, no, the Spencer Arrighetti, 44% ownership. I'm going to be over on that too. So I'm going to have 60% of him. I have 20% Schwellenbach. I'm just going to be jamming more Schwellenbach as we go on, probably with the way that lineup ended up rolling out for the Angels. I probably just play a ton of them.
So Arrighetti is the pitcher who, I guess you'd call him the safest, pitching against the Chicago White Sox. It is so much ownership, though. Here's what the entire field's portfolio of lineups, not the entire field, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Here's going to be the most popular build today. It is going to be Arrighetti, some combination of like Gavin Williams, Sean Manaea, Corbin Burns is SP2, and then Coors Field with the San Diego Padres. That's going to be what the field does. And I understand why people are playing Arrighetti. He's not all that expensive. He's got massive strikeout upside. He's pitching against the Chicago White Sox, who are absolute dog shit. But it's not like Arrighetti is a lights out pitcher. And these are the pitchers that I usually stack against and have found the most success with over time. Now, there has certainly been some bad luck that's gone out, or good luck bad luck that's gone Arrigetti's way.
It's
He's got a
okay.
5.14 ERA, but a 3.98 expected ERA, 4.18 FIP. So you would expect him to see some positive regression come his way. But with that said, still, you look at his minor league numbers, he was not a great pitcher in the minor leagues at all. He's actually pitched better at the major leagues than he's ever pitched in the minor leagues. Last year in AAA, Arrigetti had a 4.64 ERA and a 5.36 FIP. The year before in AA, he had a 4.15 ERA, 3.38 FIP, though. And it's kind of been common for him if you look at his minor league numbers where he has actually underperformed his peripheral numbers. Like go back to A-ball in 2022, he had a 5.04 ERA, 3.53 FIP. He's a pitcher who allows a lot of fly balls, doesn't generate a lot of ground balls, typically has higher than average home run to fly ball rates. Like I think Arrigetti is solid. I just don't think there's any matchup where I would expect him to be 44% owned on a slate with other pitching options. So he's my most rostered pitcher, but I still come in underweight to the field, and I really like leverage stacks against him. Play him in cash games and play him some in tournaments as well. I just don't really want him to be in half of my lineups. And maybe a little bit of a tip on what I'm doing in single entry and a team that I'm going to be overweight to the field too, just because I think there's a lot of volatility with Arrigetti and the field just locking him in like he's Jacob deGrom or something.
I totally get it. However, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate where he's doing a lot of really, really good things. Houston, they're great at finding the strikeouts with young arms. He has given up 4 homers in his last 3 outings, despite some ridiculous strikeout stuff. 8, 12, 13 Ks his last 3 against the Dodgers, Tampa Bay, and Boston, respectively. But Boston has just been destroying righties. And they've been number 1 in baseball against right-handed pitching here for Arizona now over the last 14 and 30-day sample size, but Boston up there as well over the course of the season. They've been a juggernaut for how many lefties they have. They get another one back in Tristan Casas today, but Spencer Arrigetti, I got to tell you, he's really impressed me. The swinging strike stuff is just absurd. He's continuing to improve, and that's kind of what you expect from 24-year-old rookies with great strikeout stuff. As they figure out how to pitch, they adjust to the level of competition, and there is no doubt that this is the best of his last 3 matchups, bar none. He is really, really hard to get away from. I believe I'm going to be overweight to him, not like 70, 80%. I mean, there have been guys like Chris Sale that we've done that with, Blake Snell that we've done that with, but I think today I'm going to be on the other side of that one purely because I think he's just a young talent that's ascending, and Houston has every incentive to just have him out there to dry even in some of those spots where it might get a little bit murky. And I think no matter what, he's going to run into strikeouts in this matchup.
Yeah, and then we got Clintonwood 83 in chat is asking us which pitchers we like for cash games as well as for single entry. So it's going to be quite different for me today. Cash games, for sure, Arrigetti. You want to go Arrigetti as one of your pitching options. For the second pitcher, it's tough. I think there's a couple different ways you could go. You could either go to Gavin Williams, you could go to Sean Manaea. I do think it's a little hard to spend up for Arrigetti and Schwellenbach or Burns in a cash game just because you're going to want to play Coors Field. I'm most inclined to say go the Arrigetti and Manaea combination for cash games.
I would probably be going Arrigetti and I'd probably go to punt. I'd probably be punting on this slate. I don't think Sean Manaea is a gotta-have-it guy against Miami. I probably would be punting to Gavin Williams today.
Yep, I definitely think that's one of the ways you could go. And like I said, you can make a case for paying up for Schwellenbach or Corbin Burns. I just think the opportunity cost for cash games is too great with what it's going to do for your bats. So Arrigetti and Manaea or Arrigetti and Gavin Williams, I think those are the best options for you. I prefer Manaea a little bit just because I think he brings a little bit more floor. Gavin Williams is going to be pitching on the road in Milwaukee, but either one, certainly fine as direction to go. For single entry, I'm personally going to be stacking the Chicago White Sox in single entry for today. So that is going to mean that Arrigetti is not a pitcher that I'm looking to play in single entry since I'm stacking against him. So with that being the case, I think you want to roster 2 of Schwellenbach, Burns, Manaea. Probably don't need to go to Gavin Williams if I'm going to be stacking the White Sox and they're cheap. So just your 2 out of the 3 that you like the best have Manaea, Burns, and Schwellenbach. But for single entry for you, Eric, would you be going to Arrigetti somewhere else? Because I think Arrigetti might be like 60 to 70% owned in single entry.
I think it might be. I'm going to be playing Miami no matter what in single
Okay.
entry.
Yeah, if you're going to be stacking Miami, then it's basically the same thing I had said before, but then it's just Arrighetti with either Schwellenbach or Burns. And both of
Yep.
them, I think you can make a fine case for as a single entry stack. Let's talk about the pay up options, though. Schwellenbach, Corbin Burns, you had mentioned that you like Spencer Schwellenbach. Is your preference to get to Schwellenbach as opposed to Corbin Burns?
Yes, it is. It's just a better, I mean, for me, looking at this iteration of the lineup now without Willie Calhoun, who, had around a 94 WRC plus, wasn't anything special, but was a little surprised to see him cut bait with. I mean, obviously teams are trying to shed salary, and if somebody picks him up, I think that they're responsible for the rest of that contract. If not, Angels will be on the hook for it. So you just kind of throw that lure out there and see if anybody bites. I get why they did it, but you're going up against Boston here. They get Tristan Casas back. Tristan Casas does, let me just pull this back up here too. He does have strikeouts. That'll be something that he will do a little bit more there, 28.9%. It's a decent enough strikeout matchup, but there is so much downside to firing him up ad nauseum. I look at this Angels matchup now without Willie Calhoun out there, and I just find Schwellenbach to be a very appealing option, have around 20% of him. He's been nails, sub 5% barrel percentage, 26.8% K rate, 277 xWOBA. He gets an Angels lineup that will just continue to get more and more watered down as they call up young guys, as they should, by the way. I think this is just an awesome spot to be on Schwellenbach.
I have a little bit more. I like both Burns and Schwellenbach. I'm overweight to each of them. Neither of them are projected for all that much ownership, which is because of the fact that the field is really, really looking to roster the Coors Field, which I am too. I totally understand. But as a result, you do have ownership kind of suppressed on both of these pay up options. I think one of the easiest ways to be different with your lineups is play Burns or Schwellenbach. Burns 17% owned, Schwellenbach 15% owned. I'm overweight to both of them. I'm a little bit more overweight to Corbin Burns than I am to Schwellenbach. So that's my preference. But relative to ownership, I like both of these pitchers. The reason I like Burns a little bit more is just because he's better. He's also pitching at home. Corbin Burns has been lights out this year. And he's a guy who I view as being somewhat matchup proof in terms of when he has his best stuff. This has been the case for the last few years. Nobody's going to hit him. He's got a 2.71 ERA this year, 3.11 expected ERA, strikeout rate of 23%. That is down a little bit from his Cy Young years from a couple of years ago, but still, I view Corbin Burns as being probably the second best pitcher in the American League this year, only behind Tyreek Skubal. And I like that I'm getting him at the suppressed ownership. But either way, Schwellenbach, Burns, two pitchers that I am overweight to across my set of lineups. And then in turn, I am underweight to both Sean Manaea as well as Spencer Arrighetti. Also, two guys who I think are, viable pitching options. I just think they're too popular. We've got Arrighetti pulling in 44% ownership, and then Sean Manaea at 28%. We've already talked about Spencer Arrighetti, Eric. I'm going to assume that you were underweight to Sean Manaea based on what you had said about wanting to stack the Marlins a little bit.
I sure am. I have basically zero Sean Manaea. I think just kind of looking at what the shit. Still
what's
there?
going on there?
Did I just disappear? Am I back? Am I back?
You never went anywhere.
Oh, thank God. Okay, because my screen just went black for a second. It just cut out. That was weird. I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, I am definitely going to be stacking up Miami in single entry. I'm going to be overweight to Miami. I think Miami, it's weird. I think in single entry, there's enough sharp people where I think more people will end up on the White Sox. They're both going to be like 1-2%. So don't get me wrong. I'm kind of splitting hairs to a certain extent, but I think that there is a real chance that we get absolutely no ownership on Miami as well. And Sean Manaea has that blow up potential. There's really no question about that one as well. I don't like in large field. I'm going to be playing a lot of Coors Field. I'm going to be playing a lot of Arrighetti. So it's going to be a little bit different than what I think you're going to. Well, you said Coors Field you'll be on for sure, but I like what is going on with Jake Berger. I think the construction of the top of this lineup, it's not like Xavier Edwards has any power whatsoever, but guy slaps it out there and gets on base and just keeps the line moving. Jonah Bride's been okay. Jesus Sanchez left on left. 129 expected ISO for him. Nothing special by any means, but still batting cleanup. And Derek Hill, 294 expected ISO in a super, super small sample size, 389 xWOBA. But they're just so damn cheap. And I can get to the combos of like Schwellenbach, of Corbin Burns, getting to I think that top tier of pitching where I don't think there's a lot of interesting mid-range options. It's basically going to the Florida Gavin Williams, or getting up to these studs where the potential that they have for 8, 9, 10 Ks, it's not quite like the Blake Snell. I keep going back to that slate, but like that one was so obvious to get to the top. It's not that clear cut, but I'm very much here for getting to more Miami and less Manaea because I just don't find him to be necessary on today's slate. I don't find his strikeout stuff. I know he's had like 10 and 11. He had 11 strikeouts against my Twins. It was so random, but like the walk problems will just show up from time to time. And it feels eerily similar to some of these weird chalky options that we've had, including some of them from the Mets as well.
Do you like any of the contrarian options in this range? Garrett Crochet, 5% on to 9,300. I don't even know how do you click on Garrett Crochet at $9,300 against Houston Astros when he throws like 2 innings some of these starts? Like, all right, that's enough work for you today, Garrett. And so I can't advocate for Crochet at 5% ownership. And then Jose Soriano at $8,400. He's got some strikeout upside, but the other pitchers in this pricing range are just much better and with better matchups as well. So Soriano, Crochet, I'm not interested in either of them.
I'm not either.
The 7K pitchers, and only 2 of them. There's like this big gap in the pricing where Soriano is $8,400, then Matt Waldron's $7,800, Andrew Heaney is $7,400. I'll pretty frequently end up playing Andrew Heaney as a contrarian play. Not today, though. He's actually pulling some ownership, 11% owned against your Minnesota Twins. And the Matt Waldron, he's also pulling some ownership, and then he's on the road in Colorado. Do you have the insight, by the way? I didn't even think of this until now. Does Coors Field impact knuckleballs meaningfully?
I did a ton of research on that last night. I did an unbelievable amount of research on it. Tim Wakefield, I just basically was like trying to find every knuckleballer for the last however long, and seeing at Coors Field. There's almost no data. It's truly unbelievable. It almost plays identical, but there's no way it can actually play identical. I think it has more to do with a small sample size at altitude, but it shouldn't have as, and Matt Waldron's been struggling with some of his secondary stuff, his non-knuckleball offerings as well. I can't really do it today. I want to do it today considering it's Colorado, but I'm definitely going to be on the Colorado side for some bats. Matt Waldron probably going to be a pass for me. I tried to find as much as I could on it, basically nothing available. And then some of the spin rates, we don't have any other knuckleballers who have really shown up in the baseball savant type days. So it's a very hard thing to research. You can Google, and I basically just said knuckleball Coors Field, knuckleball Colorado, was going through it, and basically no information available.
Got a super chat from the Thunder. He says on the lineup generator, which one to choose, balanced, contrarian, or chalky? For an 8-game slate, go balanced. The way I usually tell people to do this, most slates, you want to be balanced. The exceptions are like those 3-game slates. I would say go contrarian for the really small main slates that we have, like the one that was last night. And then for really big slates where there might be like 12, 13 games, then go a little bit chalky. We're just getting some of the top overall projected lineups because you have to consider on slates of that size. Ownership typically doesn't end up being all that much of an issue. It's pretty common, actually, that you'll see one of those slates with like 13 games or whatever, where not a single team is projected for more than 10% ownership. So for today, the Thunder, go with balanced lineups. Let's talk about the cheap pitchers now, Eric. And I'm on the same page. I don't like Waldron or Soriano for today. I've got 4% of each of them in my top lineup. So nothing really of interest there. Let's talk about the cheapies now, where there are a ton. Half the pitchers on the slate are priced below 7K. The ones that are pulling ownership, Gavin Williams, actually fairly popular. He is 26% owned. Then Aaron Savali pulling some ownership, but not a ton at 14%. Every other pitcher that's under 7K has less than 10% ownership. If you're rostering one of these pitchers, is Gavin Williams the one for you?
Yeah, I think just by default, it's not a great matchup going up against Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, we've seen them just obliterate righties. It truly feels like eventually the pendulum has to swing, and Milwaukee will not be as effective against them here, but still at a 108 WRC plus, but they bring that 23.5% K rate. I think if you're looking for a punt, Gavin Williams has that strikeout stuff, nearly 25% on the early going of the season, gets a number of righties littered throughout this lineup as well, where you just kind of piece through it. And it's hard to say that, like, if I'm going to punt and I'm going to find upside that's comparable to that top end, that it isn't going to probably come out of Gavin Williams in this range.
It's Gavin Williams for me as well. I'm overweight to the field on Williams. He is very cheap, and he's a talented pitcher as well. If you look at his numbers for the year, not quite as good as he was last year when he first got called up, but still solid. 4.38 ERA, 4.26 expected ERA, strikeout stuff with a 24.4% strikeout rate, average fastball velocity, 97 miles per hour this year. He's got great stuff. He was one of the top pitching prospects in baseball heading into last year, only 24 years old. All his projections look good for the future going forward. Yep. The matchup isn't ideal, but the reality is he should just be $1,000 or like $1,500 more expensive. He just is mispriced on a slate where we have a Coors Field game that looks really appealing. So he ends up in a ton of my lineups.
Yeah, and one of my buddies who is a very, very good baseball bettor and bets a lot of money. I was talking to him about Gavin Williams a little bit, and he's going to be pretty heavy on Cleveland today. He just basically bets sides and totals. He's an absolute insane person. But Gavin Williams, he was like, oh, 27.1% K rate to lefties, 21.1%. I said, go back to 2023 where we have like double the sample size. He has a 25.3% K rate to righties, 22% to lefties. So it's like somewhere in the middle. I think it's going to neutralize around 24, 25% for him going forward. I think the strikeout stuff, you know, I'm basically kind of neglecting the lefty righty portion of it purely because I think it's going to be somewhere in that middle ground. But for what it's worth, he has only 4 lefties in that lineup. Bryce Terang, Tyler Black batting third out of nowhere, Garrett Mitchell, and Sal Frelick. So it's a kind of an interesting lineup construction for Milwaukee. They're playing it pretty neutral, but I think there's no doubt that he's had more issues with righties this season, 338 xWOBA. So with 5 of them in, find it to at least be fascinating. But Gavin Williams, there's no doubt that the strikeout stuff, no matter which side of it is, I feel pretty good about him in this range, and I feel pretty terrible about everybody else.
Yeah, so that's really where I'm at as well. I mean, I already said that I'm overweight to Gavin Williams. He's by far my most rostered punt. I don't even like any of the other punt options. So, I mean, the way that I'm looking at my lineups, I'm underweight to the guys in the mid-range like Minaya and Arrighetti that the field is getting to really heavily. They're the 2 most popular pitchers on the slate. But in turn, I'm overweight to the field on Gavin Williams, which also helps me allow to be overweight to Spencer Schwellenbach and Corbin Burns, who are modestly owned at the high end. So that's what my pitcher ownership looks like. But anything else that you're potentially considering for a contrarian punt, or just a no-go?
Justin Robleski. Anytime you have somebody just randomly showing up, he has walk issues at AAA, so that'll probably go well for him here. I don't think I'm going to end up doing it. I really don't. He has no strikeout stuff at the major league level here in his, 4 starts that he's had this season. But you go to AAA, 29% K rate at Oklahoma City. Just want to throw it out there. Does have a 5.04 fit to go with it. So if you want to take a couple of shots and hope that a 2-3% guy comes out of this range, he's the one guy. I have him in 2 lineups, so I'm not going to say anything else. But I literally have 0 of Munoz, Criswell, Michaelis, and Quantrill. So at least Justin Robleski, I can say with confidence that I don't know. It's probably going to go terrible, but I can also say with confidence that if you made me roster somebody else, it would be him.
We've got a super chat here from Sean G's. He says, hello, friends. How do you guys think about stack size? I put a lot of thought into stack size this year, actually. Been seeing some more unorthodox stack types at the top of large field stuff this season, so curious how you guys think about correlation. Jordan Klein, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Can you pull up the post-contest sims here? Go to... just the MLB drop-down menu and then the MLB tools and sims. Click on the MLB post-contest simulator. Or don't. Is Jordan here? Is he taking a shit?
Oh my God. Jordan. You just got played. That's what you just got. You literally
I don't know
just
what's
left.
going on here.
Bolted.
Jordan, put your pants
okay.
back on. We need to click on stuff.
Let me see. Fangraph take on Matt Waldron. Look at this. Unhappy Cowboys. Thank you for sending this over to me. Because
all right, while we're waiting for Jordan to return here. Eric, we do have a DK Pick 6 locking shortly, and
Oh,
you are eligible to play DraftKings Pick 6. I
yes.
can't play it from New Jersey. If you guys are eligible to play it in your state, it's something I know Eric's had a lot of success with. You guys should be checking it out. Is there anything in particular you're liking about Pick 6? And then when Jordan gets back, we'll answer Sean's question the
Yeah.
way that I want to, and then we'll look at FanDuel pitchers.
Locks in 4 minutes, but I said everything that, the main core plays. I rotate a lot of stacks around then too, in the 5 and 6 man cards, and hope that you can find a couple that either underperform or overperform. My favorite plays today, though, there are 2 down at the bottom, Miami guys. Jesus Sanchez, more than 4.5 fantasy points. Jake Berger, 5.5 fantasy points. Yeah, we're doing mean projections, but from a median standpoint, I think both of these are still fantastic plays up against Sean Manaea. Paul Skeens, less than 8.5 strikeouts, is pretty heavily juiced in the marketplace. That's at the top of Odd Shopper. I saw that, that was just right in line with the projections too, where Paul Skeens, that's a big strikeout number even against Seattle there. And then a couple of interesting ones. We have to get a hit, Parker Meadows. Parker Meadows to get a hit. He's going up against Cole. That's not ideal, but Parker Meadows, really good hit stuff here of late. And again, a leadoff hitter to get a hit, that's pretty tough to say no to. Ryan Nelson, less than 5.5 strikeouts, another play that I've rotated through a lot of cards. So you can do that over and over and over again. Plus, Trey Turner, 8.5 fantasy points. That was from my video earlier. Another play that I think is great going up against Patrick Corbin. You can't play the Patrick Corbin less than 15.5 outs with it, which sucks. So I've rotated around some other cards with that. I have 30 cards going, and those are kind of your main plays that I'm rotating around.
All right, let's see. So Jordan's blaming it on his headset. All right. All right.
Is that his name?
All right.
Shut up, Siri. Jesus.
All right, Jordan. So what I was asking before, if you could do me a favor, click on the MLB post-contest sims, because I have a way I want to answer this question for Sean Jeezy. So click on, we've had a bunch of weird slates this week. Go to the Monday slate. Monday was, what's today's date? So yeah, the 12th. Click on the 12th. Yeah, go the knuckleball, and then just check the post-contest sims. Yeah. Okay. Now what I want you to do in the post-contest sims, Jordan, is go to stack ROI. And now click, yeah, there we go. So sort by 5-man stack. There's a reason why I'm doing it this way. Okay. Based on our simulations, which I think is a better process to figure out what are the ideal stacks and anything else I could come up with, look at the ROIs of the top 5-man stacks from this particular slate, where you have a handful of teams here in the Toronto Blue Jays, Minnesota Twins, as well as the San Diego Padres, all had double-digit positive ROI odds as 5-man stacks. Now click on the 4-man stacks. You only see 2 teams show up as positive ROI, and it's significantly lower than the 5-man stack ROI. Now click on the 3-man stack ROI. And you'll see only the Toronto Blue Jays showed up as a plus EV stack as a 3-man stack. So what does this pretty much tell us? Is that you want as much correlation in your lineups as possible. So 5-man stacks. And the reason, there's a couple reasons I picked Monday. First, there's been a lot of weird 3-game slates this week. That's going to really skew what some of the stack ROI results are. But then also the Monday slate was kind of comparable in size to today's slate. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good indicator that when you have, 8 games, this is somewhere around a normal size slate. You do want to be making 5-man stacks that is going to give you in the long term the best odds of producing the best lineups. So yeah. By the way, Sean in the chat says, sorry for making you do work, Jordan. My sincere apologies. So Sean, thank you very much for the super chat. That is the most data-centric way that I could show you to kind of really display what kind of stacks you want to be making. And that's also how I make my decisions about my stacks as well. Almost all of the stacks that I make end up being 5-man stacks. And a lot of it has to do because of the research that I've done in the post-contest sims. So that's way that I like to go and build my lineups. Sean Jeezy says over there, can we check 2Easy27's results? Yeah, I don't know how much it's going to tell us from just one slate, but yeah, we might as well check them out here. too easy. Yeah, we could at least see what his sim ROI was. Is he in there? It is a TOOEASY. Yeah. Yeah. Now go to user ROI and he'll be right at the top. So you see for this slate, it's kind of hard for me. It looks like he had a slightly, yeah, at least for this slate, his lineups did not rate out as having positive ROI. Not that they were terrible, negative 4.1%. And then his actual sim ROI his actual ROI ended up being 53.6 for that slate. Out of curiosity, just put my name in for this slate. What was I'm trying to remember the Monday one. This could be bad for me. I might have been like a disaster this slate or something. Let's see, though. Oh, there I am. All right. So if you look at my lineups, I had a 4.5% sim ROI for the slate, returned a 14.4% actual ROI, which if you're playing 150 lineups like I did on this slate, I'll be pretty happy to have a 14% ROI. Go to whatever. We don't have to dig. We don't have that much time left. I don't want to dig too much into the other slates, but there we go. Sean, I hope I was able to answer that question sufficiently. That's like the best way I could do it with data, but yeah, it is something I put a lot of time into. Jeremy Doyle wants to know FanDuel pitchers and stacks. Yes, let's head on over and talk about the FanDuel pitchers, Eric. I also saw we had in Discord, Einsteinium asked us about thoughts on Simeon Woods Richardson. Not somebody who's really showing up in my lineups, so not somebody that we took a whole lot of time discussing. I just really like Gavin Williams on the low end. Let's talk about the FanDuel pitchers, and FanDuel slate is different because it does include Paul Skeens on the slate, and we've got the ownership way more
that's
spread
just
out
locked already.
Oh, did it just
locked.
start?
Yep.
Well, bad timing on me then. I took too much time answering Sean Jeezy's question. But
you
anyway,
were very excited though.
Spencer Arrighetti is 14% owned on FanDuel. Considering that he's $9,500 and 14%, he's the only pitcher pulling double-digit ownership. I feel much better about his ownership on FanDuel. He's the guy that I want to be playing on the FanDuel side of things.
Agreed. Spencer Arrighetti would be the main featured guy. Paul Skeens at 11-2. Obviously, that puts some constraints on you. I got to say, I really like Corbin Burns at 2.5% ownership. So that's pretty fun to look at. At the very, very bottom there in terms of ownership percentage. That's not something that shows up a ton. And then Spencer Schwellenbach, 3% as well. But for 300 more to get to Corbin Burns, that is really, really appealing.
Yeah, and then also Rabashu in the chat asked what our thinking is about Ryan Nelson for today. I don't know that I've ever really rostered Ryan Nelson. I think there was like one 3-game slate you and I did a show with Eric where Ryan Nelson showed up in some lineups. He just doesn't have very much strikeout upside. 19% K rate this year, 15.5% last year. That's always something, especially on a slate of this size where we have other options. It's going to prevent me from really wanting to get there. So Ryan Nelson, not somebody I'm interested, especially not on FanDuel where you're only rostering one pitcher. Do you have a different take on Ryan Nelson?
I do not. It's Ryan Nelson. It's Tampa Bay. That's why you're seeing the ownership to even exist. 5.5 strikeouts is actually juiced towards the under. So, 5.5, though, being a larger number than you'd expect to see for Ryan Nelson there. But yeah, would not be for me on the FanDuel slate.
All right, let's start talking about some stacks then. And also, if you guys have some lineups for Jordan in the single lineup simulator, I saw you put one in for Captain Akella earlier. He could do some of those for you while we go through some of our stacks here. It was the other part of Jeremy Doyle's question as well. He wanted to know what we're liking for FanDuel stacks. And for large field GPPs, I can knock on DraftKings and FanDuel. I think by a mile, the best stack on the slate is the San Diego Padres going up against Cal Quantrill, Eric.
By a mile.
They're going to be popular in single entry, but I still don't mind them as a secondary stack. My primary stack in single entry, I'd said at the top, is going to be the Chicago White Sox today. I still have the Padres as a secondary stack, though, even though they're expected to be really popular. And for large field tournaments, I run stuff through the Sims, and I end up getting the Padres in like, what was the number? It was...
I have 48% five-man.
I've got 35% 5-man stacks of the Padres. They're the best stack by a mile.
By a lot.
Who's your second favorite stack? Because I do think things are much different past the top stack. Like they make up the bulk of my exposure by a pretty wide margin. But do you have any other teams that are close in ownership to them, or just ones that you have at least more than 10% of? Because I have so much of the Padres. I only have one other offense, or so two other offenses that I have more than 10% of.
Yeah, is one Houston going up against Crochet?
Ooh, interesting. Why
So
the Astros?
because they're going to get the worst bullpen in baseball behind Crochet, who's been limited nonstop here. And Crochet, I think he's out of some kind of a rhythm here. I'm not sure exactly what is going on with him here at the moment. But it would appear that he knew that they were going to shut him down. They didn't end up trading him at the deadline. He's given up 6 homers in his last 3, 4 homers against the Cubs alone. Obviously a little bit different. You can always run into that kind of stuff. It was really good hitting weather in Chicago. He was at home, so it wasn't in Wrigley, but the wind was still blowing out. He got completely obliterated. I think you just kind of play an offense that's really started to figure its shit out here of late in the Houston Astros. It's going to be, an interesting one. You get Caratini batting 5th. You don't have, any kind of an issue stacking them up, but you can only play one of him and Diaz out of the 3-5. But I think what happens is you get like these cheapies, Jake Myers, Zach DeZenzo, Mauricio Dubois, Chas McCormick down there at 2 point. Like they're very, very cheap. I kind of like getting to them because you get this bullpen is so unbelievably bad that it's almost like getting to face a bad starter. And I don't think the ownership is really there to encapsulate it. I love getting to Houston for DFS today because people see Crochet and stay away, not thinking about the fact that 6 innings of this game is very likely to not be him.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know what's going on with Garrett Crochet. When he wasn't traded, he kind of gave an ultimatum at the trade deadline where it basically said, I am not going to pitch in full in the second half of the season unless I get a contract extension, which I know a lot of people were kind of upset about that, but I understand it from Crochet's perspective as well, where he's like, this White Sox team is going nowhere. I am not sacrificing my arm for zero purpose because there was no upside. There's no playoff potential.
None.
The team is a lock to be the worst team in the league. Whether he throws 2 innings or throws 5 or 6 innings, it makes zero difference to the White Sox, to him for the future or anything like that, other than the fact that if he throws extended innings, he runs the risk of getting hurt. So he basically said, hey, I'm cool being here, but you have to give me a contract extension if you want me to pitch in full in the second half of the season, or else what the hell are we doing here? So I understand that from his standpoint. And then even from the White Sox, like, hey, we're going to keep you busy, but I'm not going to run you into the ground, because the White Sox would like him to either be a trade asset in the offseason or they would like him to be there for the long term. So I really think it's in everybody's best interest in the White Sox situation for Crochet to be throwing limited innings, but they're at least just having him out there to stay busy. But yeah, I understand your point. I hadn't really thought of it from that angle, but it makes a lot of sense. It's very unlikely Crochet's throwing 6-7 innings. You need a garbage bullpen behind him. So yeah, Astros is a contrarian stack. Certainly does make a little bit of sense. I want to answer Nick Thompson asked us a question about DK tiers, and I had to run lineups for it just because I didn't have any tier stuff set up.
You do it.
But yeah, Nick Thompson, in the spirit of Ace of Spade, DK tiers. Yeah, so I will run through this. Tier 1 for me is Shohei Ohtani. Tier 2, Manny Machado. And this is also what's kind of nice about some of these tiers here. You could play some players from the Padres and make a little Padres stack. So tier 2, I'm going Manny Machado. Tier 3, that is going to be Corey Seager for me. Tier 4, I'm going to go with Jake Cronenworth to keep some of the Padres bats in there. Tier 5, Jackson Merrill, who we talked at the top of the show how good he's been lately. So now I've got a 3-man Padres stack for tiers. And then tier 6, you got a few choices from the Padres. Arise, Bogarts, and Ha-Sung Kim all in there. My preference is Arise. You could certainly go with Bogarts as well, though. And then you've got a 4-man Padres stacks you play in DK tiers. They almost never let you stack the Coors Field games. So that, to me, is the highest upside way to go about building your lineup. Stack Coors Field in there.
Yep.
Let's see. Sounded other questions that came in Discord? No, nothing else. All right. So for myself, Eric, here are the teams I get double-digit exposure to as a stack. San Diego Padres, given. Clearly the team that I think warrants the most exposure in large field GPPs today. Another one for me, Chicago White Sox. This is just for leverage purposes. I think at pitcher, Spencer Arrighetti, well, clearly has a lot of upside. He also has a just metric shit ton of ownership, and I think he's overowned. So with that being the case, I want to be getting some leverage stacking against him. So like the Chicago White Sox, we do have the White Sox with terrible odds being a top stack, 1.7% chance, and that still has them as being positively leveraged in our top stacks tool. So Chicago White Sox, I like them in large field GPPs. And then the one other team that I have north of 10% exposure to, it is the New York Mets against Rodri Munoz, because I'm always targeting against Rodri Munoz. He's terrible. I don't know what he would have to do at this point to no longer be pitching for the Miami Marlins, because he's been as bad as a pitcher could possibly be. He's a 5.67 ERA, 6.33 expected ERA, 6.74 FIP. I don't even know that he's had that many good individual starts. Like, I don't even think he's gotten lucky to have any good starts. He has, let's see, I'm going to have you guess. How many quality starts do you think Rodri Munoz has out of the 14 that he's made so far?
Quality starts. How many times has he gone 6 innings, not had? I'd say once.
It's happened twice.
Okay.
Which is, that's like a hard amount of incompetence to stay at the big league level for this long. So, I mean, this guy also, he's made 14 starts to give it up 21 homers. He allows 1.5 homers per start. And this is for a guy who rarely goes deeper than 5 innings. So, I mean, this is a guy who, if he was pitching 9 innings, be averaging like 3-4 homers allowed per start. So I really like picking on Rodri Munoz. The Mets are somewhat popular, not crazy or anything like that. We have them with 10.6% ownership. So got 3 offenses that are double-digit owned: the Mets, the Padres, the Dodgers. Honestly, I don't think the ownership on any of them is crazy. I like the Padres and the Mets the most. I like the Dodgers to some extent. I'm just a little bit underweight to the field. But those are my double-digit owned stacks: Padres, Mets, White Sox. Any other ones that you would classify as being like core important stacks for you today?
Yeah, the Cardinals appear to be one that I'm getting to over the field as well. They're going up against that lefty. I forgot his name here for a second. The guy that I brought up who just has issues at AAA, Justin Robleski. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You have a lot of cheap pieces of that stack too that work nicely. I'm getting up to paying up for more pitching there, but you get like Pham batting third, 3,600. That's like almost cash consideration on a different slate where there isn't Coors Field. Yeah, I think the Dodgers are close to being double digit for me, 8% as well. But yeah, it is pretty. I'm heavier on San Diego than you. I have 48% of them, so it's tough for me to carve out a lot of other stuff. But I have 12% Houston. That's kind of the one that I think took me a little bit by surprise based on where their ownership is, but it completely makes sense. I upload, what I'm looking at from this bullpen side from the White Sox and some of the longer relievers. They're the worst in baseball. It's not even remotely close. So it's pretty straightforward for me. I'm going to get to a ton of San Diego. I'm going to get to Houston, going to get to Colorado. St. Louis is 10% as well. Adley Rutschman scratched. That is a thing that we want to account for.
Yeah, so first off, make sure Adley Rutschman isn't in your lineups. When does that game lock?
We've got time, 10 minutes, 11 minutes.
So what are the implications of this right off the...
Get some money off on Boston. I mean, that's one of the best catchers in baseball, two-way catchers in baseball. I think if you could jump on Boston money line right now, I think that is a really good position to be taking. I'm going to try to get some money in on that right now.
Let's see. We had
James McCann catching.
I had to remind myself for a second who is pitching for the Red Sox. I have no interest in rostering Cooper Criswell, though.
No. I'm saying from a DFS perspective, no.
Yeah.
I'm saying just from a betting perspective, I'm trying to get some money because it's going to be an unfamiliar catcher for Corbin Burns. I will say I'm going to dock a little bit I'm assuming it's James McCann that's going to be catching now. We don't have that news yet, but we're talking about one of the best two-way catchers in baseball. Defensively, Adley Rutschman is an absolute beast, and James McCann is not. So this is a downgrade for Corbin Burns as well. I'm gonna dock him a little bit.
And then we got a question from Ant8604 in chat, and he wants to know, is Boston a BP game? I don't have very much exposure to the offenses in this.
Yeah,
I mean, we got, how can you call it well, also, I'm assuming by BP game, you just mean like batting practice. Corbin Burns is pitching. I don't know how you could look at that and be like, hey, the Red Sox are expected to tee off against Corbin Burns.
No, you don't feel that way. But I feel like there's value if the numbers, yeah, they haven't moved and that's just a big deal. James McCann is batting ninth catching. That's not going to change anything on my end. I wasn't running to the window to roster Boston or to roster Baltimore here in a bullpen situation. But yeah, this is at least interesting from a betting perspective.
Yeah, and then as far as the Orioles go, I had a couple of Orioles stacks, not that many. And even those, they're probably about to go away now that there is no Adley Rushman, because that makes the stack look worse. I will say this: if you need a cheap punt catcher, James McCann, what is his salary, Eric? I'm pulling that up.
I mean, he has power. He's got to be like what, flat to something. Let me see.
2,700. Yeah, if you're in a pinch and you need to punt with a catcher, James McCann is going to be like 0.1% owned at near min salary. He's a
always
good
love doing that
for large field GPPs.
Yep, we've done that a lot this year and pretty successfully, where somebody will get scratched and the lineup changes drastically. This isn't that, but anytime you can get any position player at like 0.1% on an offense like Baltimore, it bears getting to it because his chances of success are obviously higher than 0.1%.
Oh, misunderstood. So Ant said, is it a bullpen game for Boston pitching? Sort of. Like, it's not going to be all relievers. They do have an opener, but Cooper Criswell is going to be able to pitch multiple innings. So sort of is my answer. Like Cooper Criswell.
They're starting off with the lefty and then flipping it back.
He has been going... Yeah, so last time out, notwithstanding, times were like 2-3 innings. Yeah, I mean, I think we probably could get upwards of like 4, maybe 5 innings out of Cooper Criswell. So bullpen game to an extent, yeah, but like I'm not massively interested in the Orioles or the Red Sox offense, like I said before. But I misunderstood the question.
I will say,
leverage stacks that are important to you, like how the White Sox are for myself.
Miami, yeah, I talked about Miami pretty in depth. I think that one's self-explanatory. I like Atlanta a little bit, but I mean, they're not like completely unowned by any means. But yeah, Miami's the stand that I'm taking up against Sean Manaea for sure.
All right. Let's do it then, Eric. Home run picks for the day. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up for any of the tools or packages here at Stokastic, links are down below in the YouTube description box. You want our Sims package, we got that down below. If you want to get access to the data pack, which also includes our single lineup simulator, link is for that down there as well. Eric, who's your DFS home run pick? You already gave out a betting home run pick. Who are you going to for DFS, though?
Yeah, his lines just aren't bettable at these kind of places because he's gone absolutely ballistic. I'm not a big hot streaks guy, but there is no doubt that something has changed for Jake Berger, sitting at 5% ownership here today for us. I think he came up a tiny bit there during the course of this program from 4.6 to 5.9. I am just fine with that going up against Sean Manaea, a fly ball pitcher here. And Jake Berger over the course of the last month has been on another stratosphere. He's now up to a 223 expected ISO against southpaws on the season with a 14.2 degree average launch angle. Over his last 30 days, it has gone even like more ballistic on that. So it's looking pretty good to back some burger and fries here. Let's have some dinner together, my friends. Jake Berger taking Sean Manaea yard.
All right, so I'm going with a man from the Chicago White Sox. I said he's 2% owned today, and it's Luis Robert. I mean, once I had kind of led on that I was going with
I got it.
low-owned guy and mentioned I like the Chicago White Sox. I mean, Robert's just the guy who makes the most sense. He's also only $4,300. I'm really surprised the White Sox didn't move on from him at the trade deadline. They got rid of Eloy, and I mean, where the hell is the team going? But I mean, Robert is still a legitimate high upside hitter with a shit ton of power, who I think is going to have 40 homer seasons in his future. And I like his odds to homer against a fly ball pitcher in Spencer Arrighetti, who has at times had some home run issues. So Luis Robert, that is my home run pick. Let's see what we have for chat here. Oh, we actually got a super chat from Brad Kaufman. Did you throw this into the lineup generator in the lineup sim, Jordan? Okay. Yeah. You'll see it. It's one of the super chats here. Manaea, Williams, Alvarez, Alonso. So it's a Mets stack that he has there. So while Jordan plugs that in, I'll read off some of the rest of your guys' home run picks, and then we'll see what the lineup is looking like here from Brad. But Father Time is going with Jeremy Pena. Kind of ironic here. Father Time posted right after EMAC. That seems like that is. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one. I don't know. That seems ominous.
Time in a bottle. I feel like that's kind of a
Emac is going
straight.
with Josh Naylor right before Father Time
Hey,
came for him.
How about
Mike
Emac
Campbell
Cedric
going
Mullins
Mark
yesterday?
Ventos. We've got Mighty Quinn going with Jesse Winker. Kyle Higashioka is the pick from Riggs. Freddie Freeman for 2 homers is the pick from Taco933. Gunnar Henderson from Ricardo Nelson. Amazing Asian. He just says, I love it, Eric. So he's liking your home run pick. I'm going to assume he's tailing you. Will Brennan is the pick from Jeff Matthews. Manny Machado from Anthony Harris. Orlando Arcia from Reg Kell. Matt Wallner from Tripp. JD Martinez is Francisco Rubio's pick. Chris Williams going with Jake Cronenworth and Peralta. By the way, looks like that lineup looks pretty good, Brad. You've got a 17.6% sim all right. I love the Mets going up against Rodri Munoz. It looks good to me. Ross K is going with Jordan Walker. Spanish Martin has got Royce Lewis. Jackson Merrill from Matt Comer. I should have said no Padres, no Coors Field, because everybody's just going with the Coors Field game.
Yeah.
Sean Jeezy is going with Jake Berger for 2 homers. Otani is the pick from Obi-Wan. Another one, Jackson Merrill from Amazing Asian. Alec Boehm is the pick from Michael Sorek. Michael Harris from 1-2S Mitchell. Those are all the ones from chat. So, Jordan, who's your home run pick? This is the last home run pick I'm going to hear from you for a week and a half. It better be a good one.
You're not going to like it. It's Ha-Sung Kim.
Oh, my God. He's cheating with Coors Field. All right. Ha-Sung Kim. Jordan likes him to go yard at Coors Field. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enjoy your next week. I will be gone, but I will be back whatever it is the week from Monday. So I'll see you guys then. Enjoy the time. Peace out.